It's about the I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State. Jalen Watts Jackson.
He looks fat.
On the last play of the game.
He looks
ball, right side. Cabrera will
He's
cut it off.
fat.
Colorado covers. He's out. No, he's safe. Phoenix has the foul, and a pinnacle ball throws it down.
DeBrincat gets it back to Goss. He's spinning across. Now King. Save Raymond. They score! Raymond!
Big Foz got to the throw, and it's caught by St. Gray for a first down.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Welcome in. Welcome back. Feels like it's been an eternity. I mean, obviously I took last Tuesday off because I was at the Michigan State basketball game, and that was fun. Michigan State took it to Minnesota and then had USC have their lunch, so that was less fun. But we're back. We're back. I figure, even if there's any week to miss, I think last week is pretty much the week to miss because you don't really have a whole lot going on. It's Pro Bowl weekend. I don't think okay. This is an honest question. Did anybody actually deliberately set out to watch the Pro Bowl on Sunday? Because I put it on like once everything that I was interested in was done. Like once the Pistons game was over that day, I was like, yeah, sure, I guess I'll throw it on and in between before the Red Wings game starts. I don't know how people can watch that. It's just not football. Like it's kind of fun. They're playing flag football or you have Jahmyr Gibbs out at cornerback. Guys are running on the field. I don't know. I miss the good old days when they used to go to Hawaii and they all used to wear, they had their actual uniforms or at the very least they had their actual helmets from the team that they represented. And, they used to actually try to hurt each other. And now they're just hanging out in Orlando, which doesn't have an NFL team. So I don't even know where they play. They must be a college station. That's the city. Must be a college stadium. Anyway, we're not going to talk about the Pro Bowl because I personally would like to not fall asleep this early in the night. We got a great show. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, I'm a week late to the conference championship results, but we're going to talk about it. I don't care. This is my show. We're going to talk about it. We got the Super Bowl matchup that nobody wanted, but apparently we all deserve for our sins and stuff. I don't know. This is going to be rough. It's going to be another rough one, all right? It's really the Iran-Iraq war Sunday, so it's going to be a good time for pretty much nobody, myself included. So we're going to talk about that. We also got some NBA trade deadline stuff going on, and there's already been some nonsense. So we're going to talk about the nonsense primarily because that's what we do on this show. And the Pistons have not done anything of note other than, lose inexplicably to the Atlanta Hawks. And I even have a little bit of hockey to talk about because the Red Wings are currently in the playoffs. We're going to talk about it. We got a lot. All right. Let's just start with the NFL because we're only going to be able to talk NFL for so much longer. So I want to just savor it all while I can. All right. I got to just say this. All right. I know, again, I'm a week late talking about these conference championship games. We're not going to spend too much time on it because pretty much everything that could have been said has been said. Briefly, I'll talk about this Commanders-Eagles game. I got to tell you. All right. I am not, a masochist or like what's the one where you enjoy other people's suffering? I don't enjoy other people's suffering. I don't, truly. However, if I would have told you that I didn't get any enjoyment out of watching the Eagles drop a 50 bomb on the Commanders, I'd be lying to you. All right? The Commanders hurt me in ways emotionally, physically, spiritually, economically that I truly won't recover from, really. So I took it personally. And I think the Eagles, they did me a solid, all right? It's the one time that I was rooting for the Eagles, really, in my life. Like when they were showing those pictures of Jaden Daniels all sad while his team is giving up 50 points, I couldn't have been happier. I couldn't have been happier seeing Jaden Daniels' sad face. I couldn't see it. Like I just, it was one of the great joys of the weekend for me. So that was fun. Yeah, and Jalen Hurts actually showed up and played Jalen Hurts kind of football, which is to say, it was okay. You know, it wasn't like he went 20 for 28 and 246 yards with a touchdown. You know, it was okay. I'm not saying it was bad, but like it's just Saquon Barkley, man. That offense runs on Saquon Barkley. Literally, it runs on Saquon. You got 3 touchdowns, 118 yards on 15 carries. I mean, like that's just video game numbers. That's just we just put in the Game Shark, and Saquon Barkley has super speed. He's got infinite star power from Mario, basically. But yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to talk about this game, other than it was kind of funny. The Commanders defender just kept jumping over the line during the QB sneak. I'm not calling it the tush push. All right, it's a quarterback sneak. All right, this grinds my gears when people say, "Oh, they could have been. They could have been." It's a quarterback sneak. It's not a new play. Like, first of all, if you don't like it, stop it. Secondly, if you think it's so good, why doesn't your team run it? Anyway, that's a different discussion. Yeah, so Eagles won 55-23. I did think that maybe the Commanders would have a little bit of magic, and I was really rooting for Commanders-Bills Super Bowl just for humanity's sake, but unfortunately, we don't deserve it. I don't know, maybe we did something wrong. Somebody, ran over a puppy or something bad happened. I don't know. So we don't deserve happiness in the NFL. We deserve a Super Bowl rematch that nobody wanted. Certainly nobody outside of Philadelphia and Kansas City. I'll just say that. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Commanders played very bad, turned the ball over too many times, couldn't take advantage of opportunities when they had them. Sucks. Too bad. And yes, all the Commanders fans who left very nasty comments on my angry video, this one goes out to you. So the game, though, that we have to talk about, at least a little bit. I know I'm already late to the party. The Bills Chiefs played another classic playoff game. However, at a certain point, is it really classic when one team just always wins? They say the 4 falls of Buffalo refers to when they lost the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, which, by the way, if you're a fan who lived through that, I'm sorry. Just like, I got to pray for you or something. I don't like, how did you emote? Like, that's like Vietnam War plus like World War II, Civil War. I don't know. It's like every war. That's what that would be like emotionally. And the Chiefs, they're the new 4 falls of Buffalo. I can't explain this. All right. Normally I can rationalize things. I can't really explain this. It wasn't like the Chiefs offensively were doing anything spectacular. They had a couple of nice plays there. Wasn't like one guy went off. Mahomes played a solid game, not an amazing game, but solid game. The defense for the Chiefs didn't really play amazingly. I mean, you give up 29 points. They made some plays, but they wasn't anything spectacular. But the thing that gets me about this game, you have the football with a chance to tie or take the lead. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if they take the lead. I think it was just take the lead. All they needed was a touchdown. It's 2-minute drills. All right. You have 2 running backs if you're Buffalo. All right. You got James Cook, who's to that point the leading back, a couple of touchdowns for you, and you have Ty Johnson. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know who Ty Johnson is. I don't know if he has money. I don't know if he took somebody hostage. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. But in final 2-minute drills, you can't start your final drive of the game, with a Ty Johnson toss play. Like, what are you thinking, Sean McDermott? Or is it Joe Kelly, their offensive coach? Like, what in the world? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to prove? That you can run the ball with Ty Johnson or James Cook? Here's the newsflash: you can only run it with James Cook. Who cares? The guy had 85 yards on the night and two of your touchdowns. Give him the football. Furthermore, you get yourself into a 3rd and 10, or I think it might have been 3rd and long. I don't remember what exactly it was. And instead of shooting for the sticks, because it's 4-down territory anyway, I guess maybe you might say, like, well, maybe get some chip yards. You run a screen pass that goes absolutely nowhere. You just wasted a play. I don't know why you don't run that on 1st or 2nd down if that's you have that play in mind. And then you're stuck in a 4th down and you're like, I don't know. Dalton Kincaid's got to be down there somewhere, or whoever it was that dropped that ball. Dawson, I think it was Kincaid. And it's like they didn't go out fighting. It felt like they just went down like a sad dog. Like an old dog that's just like, it's got like cancer in its eyeballs and it just looks like death. You ever seen a dog like this? Like, if you ever had a friend who had a really old dog, I remember we had a neighbor who had a really old dog, and every time I saw this dog, I was like, I think at any moment he could just die. Like, he could just disintegrate. That's how the end of that game felt for the Bills. Was just like, okay, here we go. Bills, they got to stop. They forced the Chiefs into a field goal. All right. So all they got to do is at least get into a field goal range to bring this into overtime. But better yet, they could just win this game outright, scoring a touchdown. And they just go out like an old dog. It was one of the truly saddest things I've ever seen. I was like, by the end of this game, I was legitimately devastated. Like, I was legitimately sad for the Bills. I'm not a Bills fan. I don't, like, if the Bills were playing the Lions, I hope the Lions win by 1 million. But watching this, it'd be one thing if they had done it to a series of different teams. If it was like, okay, one year it was the Ravens, another year it was the Chiefs, another year it was the Texans. I don't know. The fact that every single time it's been the Chiefs, like, and the fact that you beat them in the regular season every single time. Like, they play in the regular season, the Bills win. They play in the postseason, they don't know what football is. It's like they're playing another sport, basically. Look, it's one thing to lose in the playoffs. It's another to lose to a team in the Chiefs that, for all intents and purposes, from every statistical measuring point, are really not that great of a team despite their record. Their record is an overproduction, right? Like, they are producing a higher amount of wins than they should expected to get based on the stats that they put out, or based on the stats they put out in the regular season. But I've never seen a team like the Chiefs that just postseason turns on and they're like, oh yeah, that's right, we got to actually play football. That's just what they do. It doesn't, like, I look at their wide receiver room, it's terrible. Like, Xavier Worthy, like, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown. Is that his actual name? It's Marquise Brown, right? What is his actual name? Hollywood? Did he actually change it to Hollywood? Travis Kelce's like 1,000. And then D-Hop. There's nothing. I guess you got Isaiah Pacheco. I guess. Kareem Hunt. I don't know. Yeah, so those conference championship games, they were rough. And we'll get to the Super Bowl preview probably later on in the show, just because I got a lot of other stuff to talk about. And yeah, watching those games, it was honestly, it was like the high of being like, all right, good to see the Commanders get a little bit of humble pie, because we got served humble pie, so they get served humble pie. I can live with that. But watching the Bills lose that game, man, I mean, it's just brutal. It's just like, I don't like to compare fan suffering metrics, but the Bills are right there with the Lions in a lot of ways in fan suffering. Now, granted, they went to 4 Super Bowls, so they got at least a little bit of, They got 4 AFC Championship banners, as far as I'm concerned. But man, to lose again to the Chiefs. If I'm Josh Allen, I'm just thinking, what do I gotta do to win a game? Like, it wasn't like he didn't play amazingly, but he didn't play terribly. And it doesn't help that some of those referee calls, some of those spots, man. I remember watching that game live, like especially obviously the controversial one. You had it was the 3rd and 1 or the 4th and 1 that shouldn't have been a 4th and 1. Like it looked, I think it was Kincaid who had the first down but actually didn't, so it was 3rd down and or it was 4th down and 1, and then the QB sneak that was not. You have 2 refs running down, one with a different spot way behind, and the other with a better view of the ball past the line, and they come up with a review and say that he didn't get it. I understand that there's human error. I understand that it's not always, perfect. Plenty of teams get screwed by the spots. It's not just the Bills, and it's not just in favor of the Chiefs. But man, this is the sort of thing that just feels like it just had to be against the Bills, and it had to be in favor of the Chiefs. Like, every time I watch the Chiefs play football, outside of maybe this game, they just look so lackadaisical. They look so pitiful. I don't. It just is. It's awful. Just awful football, and we're gonna have to watch it on Sunday. And you know what's even worse? They very well could win. We're gonna live in a timeline where Taylor Swift is gonna be 2-0 in the Super Bowl. Disgusting. Disgrazia. Why do you owe an apology to New England? Why? We will talk a little bit about the Tigers and Bregman. There's not an update, at least in terms of anything substantial, other than things and interest. But we will talk a little bit about the Tigers. Signed Jack Flaherty. Talk about that a little bit later in the show. And we will talk about this. I got a lot to say about that because yeah. But that's basically the conference championship game. We'll get to the Super Bowl preview. I'll say probably at the end of the show, just because that seems like a good way to wrap it up. We're going into Super Bowl Sunday. We'll just full scale attack it. Oh, the Chiefs are a lot more annoying. Oh, I see what you're saying. Chiefs a lot more annoying. Yeah, it feels that way. It definitely feels that way. I guess, like, for me, and you know what it probably is, Detroit fan? Back when the Patriots were good, the Lions sucked. Like, the Lions were never interested in winning football. They were terrible. There was never any point where they would have been at any, like, even close to the level of the Patriots. Now, it's like the Lions are a good team, and so we got to, obviously we don't have to play the Chiefs unless we make it to the Super Bowl in the playoffs, but it's just sort of the fact that they're just always there and we're tired of it. And it's also the social media age. So you have all the Taylor Swift stuff, all the Travis Kelce stuff, the stupid podcast that he does with his idiot brother. I shouldn't say that about Jason. They're both idiots. This is equal representation. And Patrick Mahomes in every single commercial. I just got to tell you this. I don't remember Tom Brady being in this many commercials. This is just me. I'm sure maybe he was, but like, if I got to see that stupid Patrick Mahomes commercial in the T-Mobile, I know it's probably not going to be on the Super Bowl because they're going to have like all these crazy ads and all that. But my goodness, that was one of the most brutal ads. That and the stupid Bundle-a-Rooski or whatever. Oh my gosh, they're just. Oh my gosh. I don't know. It certainly feels unbearable, or at least more unbearable than it was back in the day. I don't know. It's probably just recency bias. I can't really speak to what it was like back in the day. I was like, I guess when Brady started, I was like 4. By the end of it, I don't know what it was. Well, maybe they're the odds on to sign him, but that's in a couple of years there, Zingdad. So he's not a free agent. Not going to be signed at the very least. But speaking of the NFL, we do have a few NFL news things that I want to just briefly mention and offer some commentary. And I will be checking my cellular telephone just in case there's any NBA trades that we'll be able to break here immediately. Hopefully, there aren't any because, well, actually, hopefully there are. Like, I would what I don't want is to go off and then a million trades start piling in. So, let's start here from the very top. The Cowboys hired a new head coach, and it wasn't Ben Johnson. He was already hired to that point. It wasn't Aaron Glenn. He was also, I think, already hired to that point. It wasn't Deion Sanders. It was Brian Schottenheimer. Now, if you don't know who Brian Schottenheimer is, that makes two of us. I genuinely don't know who this man is. I'm pretty sure he was like the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, I think. I think he was the OC. Let me see. What was his actual role? Yeah. He was our offensive coordinator for 2023 to 2024. Yeah, I know his dad. His dad is his dad's well known. Marty. His dad was pretty successful. He never won a Super Bowl though, but yeah, I don't know if like at this point Jerry Jones is just trolling. But it's getting to the point, honestly, as a Cowboys hater. It's just kind of sad, you know? Like when they had Mike McCarthy and when Dak was, kind of good, quote unquote. It was fun when they would inevitably lose in the playoffs or, when the Lions knocked their head off in the regular season. Like that was kind of fun. But now that it's like, okay, Brian Schottenheimer's the coach. Dak Prescott, everybody basically agrees, is not very good. They're probably interested in moving on from a lot of star players potentially. Jerry Jones doesn't really seem to care, or rather, his caring is like, if this is him caring, I want to know what him not caring is. It's like he's so full of himself and so like I guess the only person that I really enjoy seeing is him, but it's like I don't know, he's like an old guy. It's like I can't be like happy when grandpa looks like a fool. Like I don't know, he's kind of a curmudgeon, but he's an old man. He's being rash, and that's what old people do sometimes. I get it. He wants to win a Super Bowl and prove that he was more important than Jimmy Johnson. He's been he's been believing that for like 30 years at this point, and for 30 years it's not been the case. So, and speaking of new hires, Pete Carroll brought in as head coach for the Raiders. As far as my opinion on this, I guess it's good. I guess Pete Carroll always had the Seahawks playing at a pretty high level. Always had them playing above their standard. My only thing is you could put a lot of coaches in that, but that roster is just not good. You don't have a quarterback. I suppose you're thinking of taking the quarterback. Pretty much it's the Brock Bowers and everybody else show. Like, yeah, I suppose you could build a roster around Brock Bowers, but you're kind of building a winning team from the outside in. I do like the hire. I think Pete Carroll is there's a reason he was head coach for so long in college and in the pros. My only thing is it might not be a matter of coaching for the Raiders. That's just me, though. And then a couple of, I guess, DC and OCs hired by the Lions. I didn't get the guy. Hold on. Now I got to look up the guy's name. I didn't put it on here. Lions new OC. John Morton. So the Lions hired John Morton, who was the Denver Broncos pass game coordinator. He had some sort of connection with Sean Payton. Obviously, we saw the season that Bo Nix had with the Broncos led them to a playoff berth. So Seems like a guy with a decent enough resume. And then they promote internally for the DC position. Kelvin Shepard, linebackers coach, gets promoted. I think it's a solid move. As far as position players on the defense that I think performed the best and most consistently, it was the linebackers. You saw the growth in Jack Campbell this year as he had to take more of a leadership role when Anzalone went down. The fact that Alex Anzalone was playing at a very high level as well, that's another one. Like Malcolm Rodriguez, despite all the injuries, the linebacker room seemed to always be the one where, okay, guys are going to perform well. Like, you had Derek Barnes last year. I don't know if he's going to stick around just based on the injury, and I think he's a free agent at this point. Either way, I think it's a solid pickup. I think it makes sense to, promote from within, especially in the, in this coaching tree. It just seems like it makes a lot of sense. So we'll see if it ends up working out. I can't imagine the defense is really going to look all that different, at least from a scheme standpoint. I think Calvin Shepard is basically just going to run a similar kind of style of defense to Aaron Glenn. So hopefully he just doesn't have to deal with like a million injuries, and maybe has some better ability to adjust. And speaking of Aaron Glenn, the Jets bring in Aaron Glenn as their head coach. Not much of a surprise there. Former New York Jet himself, Aaron Glenn. I think he's a really good leader, and that can be very powerful. I think the Jets need a huge culture change, I should say. I think it's a solid hire. The problem is the Jets are just sort of right now in a very dysfunctional mode. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers wants to play anymore. Rather, I should say, I know Aaron Rodgers does not want to play anymore. And for me, if you're the Jets, if you're Aaron Glenn, the fact that you take this job, in my mind, it's like, okay, if I'm taking this job, Aaron Rodgers is gone. Aaron Rodgers is not my quarterback. Like, I'm looking for somebody else because a lot of this toxicity and the culture in the Jets started with him. So, in my mind, you got to cut him dry. You got to cut him loose. Get rid of him. Just I don't want to see him if I'm Aaron Glenn. But I think it's a solid hire. I think it's a good culture thing. The question is whether or not they're going to be able to get the roster right. It's similar to the Raiders where it's like, okay, you bring in a new coach, it's just more of, okay, how are you going to recover this roster from where it's at? You're pretty much in a lose-lose situation in terms of your roster on both sides of the football. You really don't have a whole lot. Maybe you have more on defense. You got Sauce Gardner, and I honestly don't know who else on defense. And on offense, I guess you got Garrett Wilson. I guess Breece Hall. That's about it. Like in terms of guys that they're going to stick around. I guess how much longer is Devontae Adams under contract? Remember him? Remember Devontae Adams? He's on the Jets. We forgot about that. But I have to talk about this. So I'm not going to mention Cooper Kupp. Yeah, okay. Cooper Kupp, they're interested in trading him. We'll see where that ends up going. But this, I think, is pertinent to the Lions in particular. And there's actually, weirdly and oddly enough, been something of a debate about this. And I'm flabbergasted at the fact that there's a debate about this. Myles Garrett requesting a trade from the Browns, quote, ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. He made a whole statement on Twitter, whatever, blah, blah, blah. My ultimate dream of winning a Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. Called this city home. My goal was never to go from Cleveland, it was always to compete and win a Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. I requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett. Now, there's a lot of people who say, well, he's going to cost a lot. Well, I don't know if we want to use up that many picks. He's going to cost too much. We're going to have to pay him. And then how are we going to pay Jack Campbell? How are we going to pay Kirby Joseph? How are we going to pay? Let me ask you something. If Myles Garrett showed up at your house and said, I would like to play for your football team, would you stop and be like, well, hold on. We don't really need you, Miles, because we got Steve. No, you would say, Miles, come, we'll figure it out. All right. There are many Lions fans on the internet primarily, and I guess sort of hiding behind, screens with this idea that we can't trade for Myles Garrett. It costs too much. Too much. Myles Garrett is a perennial defensive player of the year guy. He's a perennial 10-plus sack guy. He's entering his late 20s, early 30s, so still in the prime of his career. I don't care if they're asking for 2 first-round picks. You go out and you get him. Like, if you can get Myles Garrett, and I've heard this deal before, if you can get Myles Garrett for a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and Hendon Hooker, I'm making that deal a million times out of a million. Now, obviously, this is me projecting what I would be willing to give up. I don't know what the Browns have in mind. But if you can get him for something like that, if you can get him for something like, I don't know, like the Khalil Mack deal back in the day. If you can get it for something like that, like, see ya. I don't like the mocks that have us trading guys like, okay, J-Mo, I'm not as interested in moving on from him because he just had a really good year. Jack Campbell, that's fine. I love Jack Campbell. I think he's a really good player. Jack Campbell's not Myles Garrett. Like, Jack Campbell is a solid guy up the middle. Like, but if you can say, okay, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and Jack Campbell, or a first round and a third round and Jack Campbell, I'm taking that deal. Because you could fill in the linebacker position with someone else. You could find guys that can fulfill that. We've seen it. I mean, Malcolm Rodriguez came in and fulfilled that role fairly well. I love Jack Campbell. I'm not saying that, he's got to be your first offering. But if you come to an agreement that involves Jack Campbell to get Myles Garrett, I'm taking it. I want to win a Super Bowl, all right? And I could have Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side of Myles Garrett. That's basically a TFL or a sack waiting to happen. Like, that is just automatic. I mean, we're talking about, I'm trying to think of, we're talking about, like, if back in the day, you had Aaron Donald fuse with, what's his name? Oh my gosh, Lawrence Taylor. If you had Lawrence Taylor and Aaron Donald, that's the sort of thing that potentially we could be creating in Detroit. Now, I'm not saying that you have to, get him or nothing. Like, if you don't get him, it's a failure. Because he might really not be available. Guys can request trades, but they don't end up moving anyway. But the fact that he's requesting a trade, look, the Browns are in a terrible spot. They don't have a quarterback. Deshaun Watson is in, Deshaun Watson, basically. If I'm the Lions, I have a backup quarterback that I took in the 3rd round that if he didn't get hurt his final year of college, he would have gone in the 1st. Hey, Cleveland, you like to take risks. Come on. He's already wants out. You want to fully restart? This is a quarterback. He was behind Jared Goff a couple of years, learned our playbook. I played some preseason games. He's got some experience. I think basically Hendon Hooker is a guy that you would want to offer certainly as a part of, like, if you're giving up a player, Hendon Hooker is one of those. And this is the same thing that applies with Vegas with Max Crosby. But Max Crosby hadn't requested a trade. For whatever reason, he wants to stay in Las Vegas. I don't know why. Maybe he really likes the school system. I genuinely have no idea why anyone would want to stay in Las Vegas with the Raiders. That sounds terrible. Either way, Myles Garrett being available definitely changes things for me. And again, I'm not saying if they don't get him, it's the biggest failure ever. But especially if he actually gets traded and the deal is like a 1st round, a 4th round, and a player, then I'll be pissed. Then I'll be upset. Because if you could have gotten him for a deal like that, please. Because teams make stupid decisions all the time. And the Browns are They know how to make stupid decisions. They've done it for most of the time they've been in existence. That's not to say that they will do it here, but I'm just saying, like, you can make the deal happen. I think the Lions are a win now situation, right? Think of it this way, all right? Where do you realistically think you're going to be picking in the first round the next at least 2 years? Just realistically. And especially you have to take into consideration, assuming you get Myles Garrett back. Obviously 32, ideally, 28, 25 at the low end, 31, 30. Those picks are practically second round picks anyway. And besides, you already have a GM who, frankly, can probably hit more in the late rounds than he can hit in the early rounds. In a lot of ways, you have a guy that got Sam Laporta and Brian Branch in the late rounds. Kirby Joseph, all pro. You can afford to give up those first round picks. Your first round pick this year, the guy might not even make the team because you're stacked. And especially if you get Myles Garrett, whoever you would have taken there is not going to be as good as Myles Garrett. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. If I'm Brad Holmes, I'm absolutely making the call. I'm absolutely reaching out to go try and get him. So if you can get him, absolutely, you're right back in Super Bowl favorites. The fact that you've lost your two coordinators, your defense was decimated with injuries. If you can bring in a guy where, okay, on one end I got Myles Garrett, on the other I got Aiden Hutchinson, if one of them goes down for a week or two, if one of them goes down, heaven forbid, for a month or two, you still have an elite edge rusher. You still have a guy who can bring pressure to the quarterback. You don't have to, hope that the, Zadarius Smiths of the world, who is a fine player. He's a good player. He's not an elite player. You would have easily the best pass rush duo in the NFL. Full stop. It's in the second round, bacon bombs. That's my point. 34 overall is basically the same thing as 28 overall. That's essentially. You might as well be picking in the second round if you're picking if you're picking basically post wild card round, late 20s, it's the second round at that point. It might as well be. Anyway, you could pair those two together. And especially, this is a good point, you got road games against Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Washington. You need a guy who, on the opposite side of Aiden, Daniels or Jackson or whoever, is not getting to the other side of the field. Or at the very least, is less inclined to want to get to the other side of the field. I'll leave it at this. I don't actually really think he's going to end up getting traded. But if he does, it better be to Detroit. Especially if the price is... I changed my middle name to Garrett. I won't do that. But I will, be very happy. Is that worth anything to you? Look, if he gets traded, it better be to the Lions. And short of the deal being something insane, like your next 5 first-round picks or your, 4 first-round picks and a superstar player, if the Bills go and get him for 5 first-round picks and, I don't know, James Cook, their running back. Okay, all right. I don't know what in the world they were thinking, but that probably is gonna long-term not do well for them. Either way. Yeah, and this is the thing though, Detroit fan. Jack Sawyer, yeah, he could be a fine player out of Ohio State. Obviously, national champion, had the big play in the Final Four game there against Texas. If you have Myles Garrett on your team, Jack Sawyer's not starting. And Jack Sawyer's not going to fall to where you are in the draft anyway, probably. If anything, obviously your top 10 picks, you're going to see guys like, probably Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be surprised if he's outside of the top 15. I mean, especially you just won a national championship. That just brings a lot to the table. But, hey, if he does fall, then you take him. But I doubt it happens. So either way, your pick at, what are we picking at? 26? 26, something like that? 26, 27? I don't remember exactly. That pick is not worth Myles Garrett. Or that pick is worth Myles Garrett. Like, if you can, that player is probably not going to start. Or if he does, it'll take some time for him to get into the swing of things. I mean, we saw Terrion Arnold. It took a little bit for him to get into the swing of things. And his was really a trial by fire because he didn't have any pass rush. You help out the rest of your team by getting Myles Garrett. Is he actually going to be traded? I doubt it. But you know what? Stranger things have happened. So maybe he does. Can I dream? Can I have one? I got to watch Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl, all right? Can I have something good happen for me in the NFL? Just something? Please. Not asking for much. I mean, hey, if you can also manage to keep Zadarius Smith, and then you have Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and Aiden Hutchinson on your edge rushing community, I mean, you might as well just have a sack every quarter. At that rate, you might as well. That's just what it's going to look like. So that is the extent of the NFL news. So we'll get into the Super Bowl at the end of the show. I already talked about it. Where do we want to go from here? You know what? Actually, I think it makes sense. We should talk the NBA because I was not expecting to talk NBA. If anything, I was maybe expecting to talk NBA next week because the trade deadline is later this week, and we'll talk about all those moves and such. But instead, I do have to talk about the NBA because I got to tell you, I've watched a lot of sports. I've followed a lot of sports news, sports stories, stuff like that. Most of the time, I'm usually pretty, what's the word? I'm pretty used to things. Like crazy things happen, but it's like, whoa, okay. That's pretty crazy. I didn't expect that. Maybe like, I don't know, a few years ago when, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Why am I blanking? I don't even know what, I just lost my entire train of thought. You know what? We're just going to start over. I'm usually, not surprised by things. But I go to bed on Saturday. I don't remember what time it was when I went to bed. Maybe like 10:30, 11:30, something like that. I think I was watching the hockey game. I was watching the Red Wings game a little bit, and then I just fell asleep listening to that game. I go to bed, and I had a good sleep. It was very good sleep, actually. And I wake up, and I'm seeing all sorts of notifications on my cellular telephone about Luka and trading, and I was like, what? And then I see this. Luka Doncic traded to the Lakers. Mavs get Anthony Davis more in a 3-team deal. The full deal. All right? Are you ready? From Shams Charania. Yes, this is real. Lakers get Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris. The Mavericks get Anthony Davis, Max Christie, former Spartan, and a 2029 Los Angeles Lakers first-round pick. The Jazz get Jalen Hood-Schifino, the 2025 Clippers second-round pick, and a 2025 Mavericks second-round pick. But wait, there's more. Luka Doncic, according to Mark Stein, NBA or Dallas Insider, Luka Doncic did not request a trade. A league source tells the Stein line, at the Stein line, Mark Stein. The Mavericks did this on their own accord, getting back Anthony Davis, only one future first-round pick from the Lakers in 2029 for a 25-year-old regarded as a future MVP. They did this for no reason. No reason. They just said one day, hey, you want Luka? And the Lakers like, sure. But wait, there's more. from the Bill Simmons show, Goldsberry, who is a guest. I don't know what his first name is, but that's where this is coming from. The Luka Doncic deal originally included multiple first-round picks, Dalton Connect, and more, but was chiseled down after Rob Pelinka was able to convince Nico Harrison, the GM of the Mavs, Rob Pelinka, the GM of the Lakers, that taking on Luka Doncic was a big risk due to his weight and injury history. Okay, let me just... Basically, Rob Pelinka said to Nico Harrison, hold on, I got the drop. He said to him,
He's fat.
he said, Luka is...
He's fat. He looks fat. He's fat.
He's fat. That's what he said. He said he's fat. And he's unhealthy, so you better just give him to us, and you're going to feel great about it. I don't even... Let me... Okay. Because there are some people who are saying, okay, well, you know, Luka's really bad on defense, so they bring in Anthony Davis, who's good on defense, and this will improve them because Luka wasn't even playing that much because he was unhealthy, I'm told. Now, look, it's true. Luka only played 22 games this year so far. I don't know when he went down or when his last game, whatever. Luka, when he plays, is a 30 points a game guy. Certainly a future MVP and one of the best players in the NBA right now. And you're telling me that you would rather have a 31-year-old Anthony Davis, Anthony Day-to-Day Davis, who is infamous for getting hurt, who, by the way, not that long before this trade even happened, actually did get hurt, I'm pretty sure. And he is seen as more reliable to you. Like, I would understand. And it wouldn't make sense. I understand if they went out and they got, I don't know, a Rudy Gobert, who's, you know, defensive player of the year, right? Because they're like, okay, we need defense. We're sorry, Luka. We're just going to go all in with Kyrie, Clay, and Rudy Gobert on defense. I could be like, okay, the idea is, okay, you're bringing in a guy who's probably going to, you know, he's been consistently healthy and he plays good defense. Instead, you brought in a guy who is not consistently healthy, who is still good on defense and still can score, but like at the cost of the face of your franchise. And what makes it even worse is you get one first-round pick in 2029? First of all, the NBA needs to have a rule. You should not be allowed to trade picks 4 years in advance. We're talking a freshman in high school, potentially. Like, what are we doing? I don't know how you can even evaluate the value of that pick. And you had some people who were saying, well, this is them trying to get ahead of Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons situation. We're not talking about a guy who every year it's something else. We're talking about a guy who is not great on defense, but is still 25 years old, who just recently has struggled with health. I mean, like every other year, it feels like I'm pretty sure he played over 60 games. There's just a lot more than some of these other players can say. Like, if you were worried about weight and injury, you would have thought that Luka Doncic looked like Ben Stiller at the end of Dodgeball. Like, I saw him in the press conferences. He didn't look that fat. Like, I don't know what the internal dialogues were. Like, from all indications that I've seen, he was, you know, seen as fat. I don't know. And he wanted to be there. Like, he was, there was no indication that he wanted to leave. We already read the report from Stein who said that he did not request a trade. So you take a guy who didn't request a trade. You never announced that you were interested in moving him because all you wanted, Nico Harrison was singularly focused on a 31-year-old Anthony Day-to-Day Davis to try to win a title this year, despite the fact that his team is currently in the 8 or 9 seed in the play-in. Or the 7. I don't remember. They're in the play-in. And you're telling me that basically your team gets better because you bring in a player in Anthony Davis who realistically has, what, at most 3 more years of actual competent play? at most. Like, that's assuming he doesn't get any more catastrophic injuries, which is certainly no guarantee on that. Like, even if you want to say that defensively, right now, the roster for the Mavs has a better chance than if they kept an injured Luka on the roster. Long term, you don't like guys like Luka Doncic don't just fall from trees. And what's even better is he ended up falling to you because the Hawks wanted Trae Young. Fine player, Trae Young. I had to experience it yesterday. But you don't get guys like Luka Doncic every draft. He is a one of one. He is in the same caliber of player as the Anthony Edwards, as the Giannis's and the Jokic's. He's in that caliber of player. All right, a franchise-altering player that you put him on any roster, that team is now light years ahead of where they would have to be if they were just picking and assembling it together one by one. I don't understand what in the world the Mavericks were thinking. And I don't think anyone really will. Like, the thing is, to me, this is fireable. Like, this is a fireable offense. I don't what else are we supposed to call it? Okay, like, you traded away your superstar, the best player on your team, for a 31-year-old center and 1 first-round pick and Max Christie. Shout out Michigan State. I can't, this would be like if the Pistons traded away Cade to go get, I don't know. I was going to say Blake Griffin, but obviously that sort of thing already happened. It'd be similar to that, basically. Like a guy that is, you've built your franchise around to this point. You literally just got to the finals. Like, why are you even selling? Like, and don't say this isn't selling, all right? Picking up Anthony Davis, who LeBron clearly no longer wanted to be involved with. Although, to be fair to LeBron, nobody knew what was going on in this deal. No player. That's it. Like, you don't bring in any other teams. You don't leverage teams against teams. If you are seriously saying you do not want to keep Luka Doncic, why are you not telling the league, hey, come call me about Luka. I'd like 10 first-round picks. And you know what's crazy is I even saw a report. I saw a report today that they were also interested in bringing in what's his name? Kevin Durant, I think. I think it was Kevin Durant. Let me actually double check. Let me double check just to make sure that I got that right. Yeah, Kevin Durant. This is from I don't even know what the guy's name is. Some guy from the New York Times. Basically, they're interested in trying to get Kevin Durant. You know what would have made that a whole lot easier? If you, I don't know, maybe you just got more than 1 first-round pick for Luka Doncic. More than 1. If you would have gotten 3, you could make a trade for Kevin Durant easily. You could have traded all those picks for Kevin Durant. So, Lakers fans are happy. And whatever, more power to them. They just pulled off the heist of the century. I've seen superstars get dealt, and I've seen, it's one of those things. I was talking to a friend about this. I've seen trades where, like, after the fact, or maybe not necessarily trades, or just, like, moves. Like, stuff where you're like, okay, after the fact, yeah, it's bad. In all sports. This is not just unique to basketball. The thing that comes to mind is something like, Kobe Bryant getting traded, the draft rights traded from the Hawks, the Hornets to, I think it was the Hornets to the Lakers, right? Something like that. In hindsight, terrible, very bad. In the NFL, I guess you think of like the Ricky Williams trade. That one, in hindsight, very bad. I mean, it was kind of bad at the time, but this one, it's not just bad in hindsight. It's bad in right now. Like right now, the Mavs just sold any chance they think they have at a future long term. You could have had basically Dirk Nowitzki 2.0. You could have had a European player come in and revamp the Dallas Mavericks and bring them to potentially another championship. Luka Doncic is responsible for 1/3 of your finals appearances as a franchise. I don't think it's any secret. The Dallas Mavericks are not exactly, the epitome of a well-run franchise. Like, and this has come from a Pistons fan. We've won as many championships as they have been to. Okay? Like, this is not a franchise that has a whole lot of national press and a whole lot of, historic success. And you just let them go. Let them go. That's all I got on that. I have nothing else to say. So, the other thing to talk about the NBA trade deadline, this was not an egregious trade. It was egregious in as much as the Bulls were involved, and that's just very sad. But I thought it was an interesting trade. The Spurs go out and get De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, very good player. Like De'Aaron Fox a lot. They get De'Aaron Fox, Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings get Zach LaVine, Sidi Sissoko. I wonder if he's related to Madi from Michigan State. I don't think he is. They get 3 first-round picks: 2025 Charlotte, 2027 San Antonio, 2031 Minnesota. I mean, again, what are we doing with those picks? How can you value a 2031 first-round pick? What? We're talking 6 years in the 3 second-round picks: 2025 Chicago, 2028 Denver, and a 2020 and their own 2028 back. How do you evaluate that pick? The Bulls, on the other hand, they get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick by San Antonio. So we can point and laugh at the Bulls because what you trade Zach LaVine for one pick that was already your own that you had previously given away to San Antonio. Okay, interesting. I think the Spurs definitely got a huge haul here, but I really also think the Kings. Zach LaVine, I don't think that's really much of anything. Zach LaVine is just not a reliable player in my experience. It's just either he gets hurt or he's just kind of the ball is all about him sort of thing. He's like a ball hog. A lot of high volume shooting kind of guy. But you also get 3 first-round picks, which, you get one this upcoming draft, you get one a couple of drafts, and then one in 6 drafts from now. And you get a couple of second-round picks, which I think is solid. For De'Aaron Fox, who's a solid player, I think that's a solid return. I like the trade for the Spurs because I think that makes them better as they're kind of on the precipice there of the play-in, I believe. And you're pairing De'Aaron Fox with Victor Wembanyama, which I think is a great pairing. And for the Kings, you get a bunch of draft picks. That works for you because you kind of realize maybe it was a little bit of a flash in the pan that playoff run a couple of years ago. Build up some picks, maybe see what you can do from there. The only team I would say that loses is in the Bulls. What is that return? And I saw a report today, and I feel bad because the Bulls actually are a team that has something of a historic, a 10-year period of success. Basically, the report was that around the league, the Bulls are they're just viewed as nobody knows what's going on. They're just a total disaster. Total disaster. I gotta say, it's a really bad time to be a Chicago sports fan. In the 2010s, late 2010s, it was really bad to be a Detroit sports fan. I feel like Chicago, it's come to, the Reaper has come to get them. The Blackhawks are terrible. The White Sox speak for themselves. The Cubs aren't terrible, but they're not great either. The Bulls are the Bulls, and the Bears are the Bears. I guess they got Ben Johnson. They won the offseason 2 straight years. So, yeah, just thought I'd talk about that. So, obviously, there's going to be a lot more trades this upcoming week as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Or at least I assume there's going to be a lot more trades. We'll talk about it. If there's anything major, we'll certainly talk about it. But, yeah, that Mavs Luka deal. That's highway robbery would be an understatement, I would say. Yeah. We got a lot of comments here. I'm sorry, I'm missing some of your comments here, Detroit fan. I'm just ranting and stuff. So Let's see. Let's see. Mavs also just traded Quentin Grimes. Yes, I saw this. This is a great trade from Trajan Langdon. You got a couple of picks and a solid player in Tim Hardaway Jr. for Quentin Grimes, who sucks. Like, Quentin Grimes is terrible. Talk about highway robbery. I don't know. Like, Nico Harrison is on a fast track to getting fired. That's a low key trade. Like, you got to think, if you would have had Tim Hardaway Jr. on this Mavs team as it's currently constructed, who knows? I'm not saying he would have been a difference maker, but he certainly would have made the team a lot better than Quentin Grimes, right? Like, that goes without saying to me. Quentin Grimes just bailed out by that, like, 50-point game he had that one time. Remember that? Yeah, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. Let's see. 5 years ago, this trade would be lopsided for Dallas, since they would have assembled a team of AD, Kyrie, and This is true. This is true. I mean, yeah, like, if we're talking about AD of, the late 2010s, like New Orleans Pelicans AD, almost MVP caliber AD, to like the early 2020s Anthony Davis, yeah, probably would have been, but that's over a decade ago at this point. Something crazy. The top 12 picks from the 2018 NBA draft, only 2 of those guys are still with the team that drafted them. Wow. Huh. Miles Bridges and Jaren Jackson. Hey, remember when Tom Izzo didn't put Jaren Jackson in against Syracuse? Speaking of Michigan State basketball, okay, we're actually going to be happy. I think 5 years ago would have been a lot different. Yeah, this is true. This is true. Was Luka drafted at that point? Yeah. Yeah, he was in the league. What was his draft year? 5 years ago, it was 2020. I don't want to talk about that. All right, we're not talking about 5 years ago anymore. All right, that makes me feel sad and old. Don't even say 5. You're not even that word's banned. We're talking Michigan State basketball now. I think he was in Spain. Fantastic. We're talking Michigan State basketball. Hey, hi, hello. All right. So look, I have probably been the harshest voice of Michigan State sports, at least publicly. I'm maybe not the only harsh voice, but Michigan State hoops, I will say this. They're actually pretty good. Like, they're actually kind of good. I mean, from just a statistical standpoint, 18-3, right? You're first in the Big Ten. You had just come off of a 13-game win streak, 9-1 in the conference, thanks to a loss against USC on the road. Look, like, up and down this roster, I gotta say, I'm highly impressed by the way this roster is constructed and just how deep it is in terms of guys that are productive for you. Jaden Akins leading the way, which makes sense. Senior, 13 points a game. Not a great three-point shooter. He shoots just 28% from the three, so maybe stop doing that. But, he's your leading scorer. He can drive to the basket. He is the master of the just drive to the basket, draw a foul, and hit the shot. That's the thing that Jaden Akins does so well. He's so much fun to watch. I think he's a good leader. He's a good vet presence in the room. Behind him is Jace Richardson. Now, Jace Richardson, if you just looked at the stats, or you would think this guy is, junior, senior. No, he is a freshman. He is a freshman, and he is the second leading scorer on the team with 9 points a game, shooting 42% from three. When I tell you that Jace Richardson is legit, I think this guy's legit. Like, we are seeing potentially the next star guard in the Big Ten in Jace Richardson. Especially, the way that he's starting so hot right now, that he's just on a roll. He's over 20 minutes a game, so he's playing most of the game, right? Obviously, he's coming off of the bench, but he's fulfilling his role well. Like, he's just playing at a level that I have not seen a guard play as a freshman. And I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, all right? Let's not get it twisted. Since Cassius Winston. I'm not saying he's going to be Cassius Winston, but since Cassius Winston, he's the first guy that I can remember that immediately out the gate was just destroying, just murdering. And look, obviously, his father, Jason Richardson, I don't know if they told you that in the broadcast because they say it about every single time, had a relationship with Tom Izzo. I'm sure, I don't know how similar players they were, Jason Richardson, a little before my time. But obviously there was a relationship there. Tom Izzo able to keep him in-house, right? I don't think there was any chance he was going to go anywhere else. And he's just playing at a high level. And a guy as well that I got to shout out, because he was someone that I certainly last year gave a hard time to. It's Cohen Carr. Look, I'm all for the high-flying, crazy alley-oop plays, but at a certain point, I was like, okay, look, Cohen, buddy, if you don't get a jump shot, I don't really care. I just can't do much with that. Now, his shooting really hasn't improved fantastically. However, he has added a three-point shot, which is not great. 37.5%. Not great. But you add that to his 8 points a game, to his almost a block a game, to his 3 boards a game. One of those boards coming off the offensive side. This is a guy right now who is developing. He's getting better. Now, obviously, you're shooting 60% from the field goal. That's not great, but he's highly athletic. He's elite on, I think he can be elite in the, just run and gun with it, just run down the field in a fast break on either side of the ball. Like he can go out there and make a crazy block. He can go out there and alley-oop. He's just a fun player to watch. And a few other guys I want to shout out briefly as well. Trey Holloman, solid. He can get hot he can get hot quick. Just a good player. 8 points a game. Just a good player. I got nothing else to say about that. Even Jackson Kohler, solid, leads the team in rebounds. Jeremy Fears as well. He's a guard who's really shown some good stuff. 40% from 3 for him. 76% from the line, 43% from the field in general. There's a lot to like about the team. The fact that, for one, we're talking about a lot of fairly young guys coming in and being productive. In Jeremy Fears, in Cohen Carr, in Jace Richardson. Even Xavier Booker, just stop trying to shoot the 3 and I'll be good with you. But, he's almost a block a game player. If he can develop into a defensive stud to come off the bench, obviously 5-star recruit. I'm expecting a lot more out of Xavier Booker a lot earlier, but you know what? Maybe it just takes a little bit of time. I'm willing to wait on it. Tom Izzo, for me, has earned the right to maintain where he's at. I think the 2020s, it really felt like, okay, Tom, it doesn't seem like you have it. The guys that you're bringing in, they're not developing. They're not getting better. The team is not having much success. This is the first year in a long time that Michigan State seriously looks like a team that can win the Big Ten. But my question then becomes, well, why stop at the Big Ten? I'm not saying this team is bound for a Final Four, but the team is going to have a pretty high seeding. And the higher seeding you have in the, March Madness tournament, just the better odds you'll end up with the Final Four. That's just pure numbers. Most of the Final Four teams are not coming from, the 10 seed, basically. And look, right now they're number 9 team in the country. They got a big game tonight against UCLA. It'd be a huge bounce back game, because if you drop 2 in a row on the road against 2 really solid Big Ten teams in UCLA and USC, 2 teams that are starting to kind of get a little bit hotter, yeah, that's not a good look. You need to come back, bounce back, and do what you can. The thing is, for all intents and purposes, Michigan State's going into this game as underdog, despite the fact that they're the number 9 ranked team in the country and UCLA is not in the top 25. I don't really know how to make sense of that, but it is what it is. Honestly, I do think that there is more than just a Big Ten title in the mix potentially for this team. You don't just win 13 in a row as a fluke. All right. I know that what a lot of the talking heads, a lot of the, general perception is oh, well, their schedule is, the tougher part of their schedule starts now. And yeah, that's true. The tougher part of the schedule does start now. But I don't care who you're playing. If you win 13 in a row, you've got my attention. They went 2 months of not losing a basketball game. Think about that. All right. Like eventually, yes, you're going to lose a game. Eventually, you're just gonna have a bad night. Hopefully, they don't have another bad night tonight. I will honestly not be watching this game because why they want to start these games at 10 o'clock at night, I understand it's in California. I do not care. Many of the fans watching are in the East Coast, in the Eastern time zone. Nobody is going to be watching this game from our end. But I do think that Michigan State is certainly a Big Ten contender. Right now, that's where they sit. They're playing good ball. And I think if they can get a win here tonight. And then what's the rest of their schedule looking like? What are they? Where do they go from here? All right. You got Oregon at home on Saturday, 12 o'clock, Fox. That's prime time, right? That's the noon game, the start of the. I know it's not prime time traditionally, but it's the first game of the day on a Saturday. That's a big spot. You got pretty much nothing but you got pretty much nothing but national broadcast from this point forward. You pretty much backloaded all your Big Ten network games. You got one more coming up, Maryland on the road, but that's the only one. The rest of the games will be national broadcast. So you got a lot of tough games coming up. UCLA, obviously, tonight. Oregon, Indiana, Illinois. That was a great win at home, but you're going to have to face them on the road at night. All I'm saying is this, all right? The bottom, like you could just stumble your way back into the tournament. Because I think at this point, they're just going to make the tournament. You win 13 in a row, including a ranked win against Illinois at home, as well as, wins on the road against Ohio State and Rutgers and et cetera, et cetera. You're going to make the tournament. But the difference between being a top 5 seed is going to be determined in these last final games. You had just one ranked opponent in that 13 games, or I guess 2 ranked opponents with North Carolina in that 13 game stretch that you won. This final stretch, you got, as it stands right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 6 actually, because you play Michigan twice. It's going to be a tough stretch, no doubt about it. But hey, I've seen Izzo get hot at these stages. I've seen it's happened. So I got no reason to believe that he can't do it. He certainly has shown an ability to do it. So I'll say this to end it. Michigan State hoops is actually kind of fun again. It actually is. Like I'm actually, I'll be saddened if I wake up tomorrow and see that we lost to UCLA. Like I genuinely. And I will be, locked in to Oregon, Michigan State on Saturday. It's fun. Basketball is fun. I didn't know this was possible. All right. So we got 2 more segments I want to get to. First thing, I'm just going to talk about this briefly, just because it's baseball and there's, I guess as it stands right now, the offseason is still technically happening. I'm not going to evaluate an offseason for the Tigers until the very end of it. But Tigers signed Jack Flaherty. Technically, it's a 2-year deal, but realistically, it's a 1-year deal with an opt-out after the first year. So it's pretty much a 1-year deal for Jack Flaherty. Good to see him back. I loved him as a player. I was happy that we traded him. It was a great trade deadline. We did that show right after, and I told you, this is a good move. And you know what? This is the first time that I've ever seen where the whole trade him and then re-sign him in the offseason actually worked. So now, basically, to all the people who didn't like the trade, we got Trey Sweeney and Tyron Lorenzo, 2 prospects. Trey Sweeney, who, by the way, was playing shortstop during your playoff run, and Lorenzo, who is now a top 100 prospect. And now we got Jack Flaherty back. So we lost him. We got those guys for Jack Flaherty, and then we just gained Flaherty right back. So, hey, if you can show that you're a good team and Flaherty is having success, he's going to want to stay. Maybe you say, okay, well, he wants to get more money. Look, if he has had his most success, or at least he's revived his career with the Tigers. We'll see if he ends up opting out either way at the end of this year. But hey, again, if he opts out, we can always just arrange a new deal with him and sign him again. It just seems like a total win-win for me. And Jack Flaherty is a great pitcher. You pair him with Skubal, you have a 1-2 punch with guys like Reese Olson and Casey Mize and potentially Jackson Jobe there in the back end. to, put together a really strong starting pitching roster. We'll see if they end up getting the job done with Bregman. Because to me, you need to get one premier bat. All right, like Gleyber Torres, not a premier bat. Good player, not a premier bat. You sign Alex Bregman this offseason to me, I'll say probably a B plus. Not an amazing, not like, you went out, you got 2 infielders and 2 starting pitchers. You got a starting pitcher, Alex Cobb. I don't even know if he's a starting pitcher, really. You got a relief pitcher, what's his name from New York? I don't remember his name, but one of the relievers. And Gleyber Torres and Jack Flaherty. And then if you can get Bregman, yeah, solid offseason. Yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about it. Cater Montero. Again, he's another one who kind of showed out a little bit there as well. I think ultimately the pitcher who performs the best is going to win the job. So if Mize, finally gets it together, because he just never been able to stay healthy. And when he is healthy, it's just kind of underwhelming. But, I just hope, he was a first overall pick. If you get something from him. Same with Torkelson, where it's like, come on. Like, if we could just get something from you. Like, if we could just get above average play at the very least. Feel great, I don't know. So, yeah, that's all I want to talk about with that. But speaking of Ilitch-owned properties, we have to talk about the Detroit Red Wings. They have won not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 in a row. 6 in a row for the Detroit Red Wings. All right, you know what? I'm buying in. All right. I might regret this. I might, feel like a fool at the end. I might get angry, but I'm back, baby. The Red Wings have managed to climb their way back into that top wild card spot. 59 points. They're tied technically in points with the Columbus Blue Jackets, but they have that in hand, so that's why they're above them. They've won 6 in a row. In their last 10, they're 7-2-1. The McClellan effect is legit. Hold on. Let me just go back to the moment he was hired specifically. Oh, wait, hold on. This is the worst. There we go. So if we go back, he was hired after the Blues lost, St. Louis. So I'm just going to do a quick calculation of his overall record because I don't have it off the top of my head. So let's see. 0-1 against, because of the 0-1, 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 7-2, 8-2, 8-3, 8-4, 8-4-1, 9-4-1, 10-4-1, 11-4-1. 12-4-1, 13-4-1, and 14-4-1. Wait, yeah, 13-4-1. Is that right? Is that math right? I don't know. Either way, very good. Basically, that's all that was. That's all that experiment was there to show. Now, a lot of people are going to say this is entirely on the McClellan effect, and I think a lot of that is true. The players have clearly shown a lot more fire with Tom McClellan as head coach than they ever did with Derek Lalonde. And it's just a lot more fun to watch. But I don't think it is just McClellan. I think it is a combination of McClellan and actually bringing up the kids. Actually bringing up and putting the players that we took in the first round or in these later rounds, the guys that I've been told by Red Wing fan and, hockey, genius, that these are the guys Steve Yzerman has brought in to really supply this Red Wings team with a long-term future. So, a couple of guys that you got to shout out. Marco Kasper. He's been on an absolute tear. On the year, his numbers, not amazingly impressive. Just 19 points in 48 games. But you got to think a lot of those points have been coming in the last few games. All right? He didn't have any points the last couple of games. Against Calgary or against Vancouver, he didn't have any. Edmonton had an assist. 2 goals against LA with an assist, 3 points. Goal against Tampa Bay. Then he had a goal against Dallas in a losing effort, to be fair. goal against Florida and an assist. Goal and an assist against Seattle. Goal and an assist against Chicago. Like, basically since January 10th, he's been absolutely on a tear. And, hey, we took him in the first round for a reason. And you got to give credit to McClellan. He moves him up in the line, pairs him up with some of the top guys, and he has lived up to that level. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, we finally bring in some of these guys like Marco Casper. Yes, this is who we wanted. But even more than just Marco Casper, because it's not just him. It's also a guy like Elmer Soderblom. Now, is Elmer Soderblom tearing it up in the same way that Marco Casper is? No. But hey, I'd rather see Elmer Soderblom than I don't even know. Christian Fisher. I guess Christian Fisher is still playing. But you know what I mean? Or JT Confer. All right? Like, JT Confer, fine player. He doesn't really do anything for me. Like, he's just not as good as he was last year. And for Soderblom, he's also been on a little bit of a tear. He's got a 4-game point streak. Had a goal against the Kings and 3 assists in a row against Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver, respectively. Like, he's been able to, step up and play at least competently, right? Like, it's one thing to say, okay, like, is he, Sidney Crosby? No, but he's 23 years old and he's playing productive. He's helping your team win. He's out, like, his name is being called upon in terms of actually tangible things like assists and points. I know there's more. Hockey nerds know a lot more about this than me. But in terms of the stuff that I know, he's on the score sheet. And on the defensive side, no longer do we have to deal with the terror that is Jeff Petrie. And instead, we get to see the beauty that is Albert Johansson. Now, again, is Albert Johansson Nick Lindstrom? No, he is not. But he's a whole lot better and a whole lot more interesting of a player than Jeff Petrie. And I just saw earlier today, Jeff Petrie apparently just recently had surgery. He's going to be out another 6 to 8 weeks. You could just stay home, Jeff. You need the rest. You need the rest. Just stay home. Don't bother, trying to get back. I don't want to see him again. I want Jeff Petrie to be pushed off like an iceberg and just float away. Just float away. All right. Now, again, is Albert Johansson some superstar, Cal Maker? No, but he's still really good. He's still a solid young player that can continue to develop and get better. And the same applies to Simon Edvinsson. Like, notice what I'm pointing out, by the way. I'm pointing out all these young guys that I had been told for years and years that these were going to be the guys that can bring us back, that Steve Yzerman was setting us up. He was giving us all. And to be fair, these guys have been playing. Simon Edvinsson's been a plus player the last 5 games. He's only got the 1 point. He's 1 goal against Calgary, but he's been a positive player on the ice. And he's playing, upwards of, a third of the game. He's, 20 plus minutes every single game. Like, he's playing at a very high level. And I want to just stress this. It's not just McClellan. And he's a part of it because he's bringing up guys and guys are developing better under him. But it's the fact that we're actually bringing up the young guys. We're no longer beholden to have Jeff Petrie out there or to have, JT Confer slow us down. The forward room was already the stronger room anyway. But, man, it just feels like this team just has a fire lit under them. That they are actually out there playing at a competent level. And look, right now, you're in the playoffs, okay? But things don't exactly get easier, right? So you have the Seattle game tonight. Seattle's not great. And you have the Tampa Bay game on Saturday. That's your final game before the Four Nations tournament thing, whatever, that I'm probably not going to watch. But you do then have a couple of games upcoming that I would say are pretty winnable, all right? Minnesota, it's a good team. It's a very good team even. Just from where's the standings? Let me pull them up. Just from a standing standpoint, they're a very good team. All right, you're gonna have to play them twice to end the month. Once at home and once on the road. You also got Anaheim at home, and I'm sorry, you better, if you, for whatever reason, all right, for whatever reason, the last couple of years, whenever we play San Jose or Anaheim for that matter, we just lose our lunch. We just don't know how to play hockey. So you got three playoff team matchups coming up. You have Lightning, who is a playoff team, right? Yeah. No, Tampa Bay's not in the playoff. Oh, never mind. But you have Tampa Bay, you have Minnesota twice, and you have Columbus, and then you have Anaheim. And that's the end of your month. All right. Obviously, you have a break there because of the Four Nations Cup. But then you get into March, and March is, of course, the brutal month. There's just going to be a lot of games, all right, because the schedule is just going to sort of take over because you're not going to have any other sport really competing. You're going to have some basketball in there, but that March is really where the rubber meets the road because you're going to have a game against Columbus. That's going to be the Stadium Series. That could be at least a fun game. Then you got the Hurricanes. You got Utah. You got Washington, who's on a tear. Ottawa, Buffalo, Carolina, Vegas, Washington again, Vegas again, Utah again, Colorado, Ottawa again, and then you end the year with Boston. That is a brutal final month. Or maybe not, end the year. I'm sorry. You still have some games in here. You end the month of March, which is practically the end of the year. Obviously, April, you have a few games in there. But, we just can't afford the kind of collapse we had in March that we did last year. And it came down to the final game, whether or not we were going to make the playoffs. Can't afford that, all right? For one, the roster on this team is just not, it's young, all right? I'll say that. It's a young roster. Or at least, it's becoming younger. It's not going to be easy, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So if McClellan, he can keep them playing at this level. I got duped by last year's February too. They went on a crazy win streak last year in February. I got duped by that too. I'm not going to be fooled again, all right? I think they can do it. It's right in front of them, right? It's in their control. You're in the playoffs right now. What you would have to do is completely collapse. Don't do that. Don't do what Derek Lalonde would have done. And boy, he's got to be seething, right? I mean, the fact that his team immediately started playing better as soon as he got fired, never a good look. Never a good look. All right, I'm checking my phone again. Dubs Suns Heat talk trade. Potential 3-team deal would send Jimmy Butler to the Suns and Andrew Wiggins to the Heat. Wow. It's a potential deal. Hadn't happened. Oh, yeah, you're right. Is that back to back? Is it? Hold on. Gosh, the NHL's website is so bad. Or no, it wouldn't be back to back. They'd have Friday off, but yes. Yes. Wait, would they have Friday off? Yeah, they'd have Friday. I know one of the win streak last year also included a win against Chicago. That was the last win I remember. Because it was Patrick Kane had a game-winning shot, and that was I was high on life. It was oh, this is great. Seems like every year, the last couple of years, we had a win streak going into the month of February, and then everything just falls apart. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time. Hopefully. Priority curse. That's right. That's right. All right. So we've made it to the end of the show. But of course, it's not the end of the show because we have to talk about the game, the big game, because we can't call it the Super Bowl. All these advertisements, we can't call it the Super Bowl. It's got to be the big game. Not the Super Bowl. It's the big game. It's a big game. I'll get to that in a second, Detroit fan. We got to talk the Super Bowl really quick, and then we'll get to the comments. All right. KC, Philly, rematch for the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Oddly enough, also on Fox. So this is kind of weird how that ended up working out. Looking at just the spread, according to ESPN Bet, Kansas City, 1.5, minus 1.5. So 2-point favorites, basically a coin flip. However, weirdly enough, ESPN Analytics favors the Eagles. They got the Eagles with a 56.1% chance of winning the game to the Chiefs' 43.9%. Now, on the Chiefs side, Mahomes is Michael Jordan. But unlike Michael Jordan, this year wasn't really that great of a year for him. I guess I don't know how good of a year this year was for Michael Jordan, but not a great year statistically. 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, just a little under 4,000 yards. I believe those are career low. That's a career low in yards for him. But in the playoffs, at least last couple of weeks ago, in the AFC Championship game, put together a really solid game. Didn't make a whole lot of mistakes, had a couple of rushing touchdowns, had a passing touchdown as well. He has shown his ability to just take over a game as he does. If you can take advantage of the turnovers, which he has been prone to give up, given the 11 interceptions, and he also had a fumble against the Bills there in the AFC Championship game as well. That is where you can really take control of this game if you're Philly. Now, on the rushing side for Kansas City, this is where it's a little bit of a committee. Their leading rusher of the year was Kareem Hunt, who is basically just a goal line guy at this point. He's, for the most part, he should not be, bursting out with 20, 30-yard rushes every few plays. He's really not that kind of a player anymore. I don't know that he ever really was that kind of a player, but he certainly is going to be a threat at the goal. He's not a nobody, right? He's not Ty Johnson, for example. Shout out Bills. And then on the receiving end, Travis Kelce is their leading receiver. What can I say about Travis Kelce that hadn't already been said? He's probably the best postseason tight end / receiver ever. I like they show that stat basically every year. I think the only guy who might be better than him in terms of pure statistical measurements is Jerry Rice. Like, that's the kind of guy we're talking about for Travis Kelce. He's an elite weapon, and he's in a class of his own, especially when it's the playoffs. If you're Philadelphia, you cannot let this guy start to get hot. I remember the first half against the 49ers in last Super Bowl, he didn't really do much. But in the second half, he started to become a little bit more active. Again, maybe my memory is faded on this, but he is a threat, all right? Do not let the less than 1,000 yards and only 3 touchdowns on the year and less than 100 catches on the year, make you think he's just past his prime. He's not, all right? He still has a lot of football left. He's still very, very scary on the offensive side. So, yeah. The Chiefs, offensively on the year, have not been all that good. But listen, this is postseason. At this point, I'm just left to believe that postseason Chiefs are just real. They just turn it on in the playoffs. They don't care about the regular season. They just care about, once they make the playoffs, about going to win the Super Bowl. And that's just sort of how they've lived the last couple of seasons. Now, on the Eagles side, because they're the team that I guess we're a little bit less familiar with, although for the most part, they were just in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Jalen Hurts, again, not having an amazing year. He did miss some time due to injury, but less than 3,000 yards on the year, 18 touchdowns to 5 picks. Jalen Hurts, for pretty much the whole year, I've been saying that, he really hasn't had a game where I was like, wow, that's why you paid him the way you did. But he also really hasn't ever played a game where you're like, wow, why did you pay him that much? He's played games where it's like, okay, I guess he didn't do that much, but that's just because the player we're going to talk about next is stealing the show. In this case, let's just jump right into it because he's their entire offense. It's Saquon Barkley. All right, Saquon Barkley, over 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns on just 345 carries. Basically, he's your all offense. All right, I know A.J. Brown is good. I know Devontae Smith is good. I know Dallas Goedert is good. Saquon Barkley is your offense. Full stop. The guy is just a wrecking ball. What he did against the Commanders was nothing short of terrorism against our nation's capital. It was on that level. It was bad. If you were a Washington Commanders fan, he hurt you immeasurably in ways that you will not really be able to recover mentally and spiritually. Look, if anybody could win MVP that's not a quarterback this year, it'd be him. And we'll see if that does end up happening. I doubt it does, but it certainly is on the table. for him. I'm sure he's going to get votes. He's probably the best non-quarterback player in the league. Like he's playing at an absolutely elite level. I gotta say, in those Giants years, in my mind, I always just sort of associated him with getting injured and not really being that consistent. This is the first year that he's really played the entire year and just absolutely gone off. This feels a lot like that that first year with Christian McCaffrey, I guess last year, with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers, where you finally got to see a full season of McCaffrey when he was healthy, and wow, it's a sight to behold. If the Eagles are going to win this game, it's primarily going to be because Barkley absolutely goes off. And I think he's done it against every single team in the league. He's done it in the playoffs. He's done it in the regular season. He can do it at any given moment. That first run against the Commanders where he just said, you know what? I'm actually just going to score a touchdown. That was brutal to watch for the Commander side, but it was a sign of how the rest of that game was just going to go for him. Because Saquon's just that good. And frankly, even if they had a better defense, it wouldn't really matter. He'd still be able to do stuff all over them. And whether it's, getting those extra yards for a first down when you have to have it, or picking up the easy touchdown when you get into the red zone. He's just that good, and he's their entire offense. And I know I spent a lot of time talking about him. I'm not really going to talk that much about AJ Brown. He's good. But he's not Saquon. Like, Saquon is the engine of the Eagles. All right. I don't think I'm exaggerating in saying that. He is their offense. Like, if he's rolling, they're gonna roll. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, those guys, they're gonna be able to have their moments and they're gonna have big plays. But Saquon is the steam engine at the front of the train. He is the one bringing the whole thing. All right, he brings the house. If he's going off, their offense is going to win it. Now, as far as who I got, this is honestly one of the hardest predictions, picks, whatever you want to call it, that I've had to make, because in my heart of hearts, all right, I don't want to see the Chiefs win. I can't live in a world where Taylor Swift is 2-0 in the Super Bowl. I can't do it. All right. I don't want to live in that world. You cannot make me live in that world. I will not eat green eggs and ham. I will not eat them in a house. I will not eat them with a mouse. I will not eat them in a box. I will not eat them with a fox. I will not eat your green eggs and ham, Sam I am. I will not live in a house. I will not live in a room where Kansas City and where Taylor Swift is undefeated in the Super Bowl. So fly, Eagles, fly. That's the noise an eagle makes. That's a real eagle noise that I made. That's the most realistic eagle noise ever. I bet you if an eagle heard that, it would have thought I was a real eagle. You don't even, if you criticize that, it's because you hate eagles and you hate America and apple pie and football and happiness. Look, to end this segment, this has been a crazy year of the NFL, and I wouldn't be all that surprised if Kansas City does end up winning this year. I really wouldn't. However, I just have to believe that eventually the shoe will drop, that eventually the clock will strike midnight, and the Chiefs, inconsistent and just incapable offense, runs into a brick wall defense in Philadelphia and just can't get the job done. Now, on the other end, I also wouldn't be surprised if Saquon Barkley runs into a brick wall and it's just a very low-scoring game that the Chiefs end up taking control over, because that's just the way they played all year. But I do think the Eagles are going to come away with the win. So fly, Eagles, fly. I can't believe I had to say that. I'm going to go throw up right now. So, yeah. That's a quieter eagle noise. Eagle that's in a library. That's right. All right. So I want to take a look at some of these comments before we get going here. Spencer Torkelson comment. Let's see. Feeling that why they haven't signed someone like Bregman or Pete Alonso, Tigers are keeping the door open for Torkelson. I mean, they are, but I don't think Torkelson is what's preventing them. I guess if that were the case, I think that would be malpractice, because I'm sorry, Torkelson is not, Torkelson has not shown me that he is worth the number 1 overall pick. Now, if he had just come off of a season where he hit 30 bombs or, had 100 RBIs or like after the call up was batting like 350, then sure, okay, maybe you have a conversation about it. But he wasn't amazing. He had a decent postseason, but he wasn't amazing. So, Scott said Colt will be first base and Torque will mainly just be a hitter. But if Torque does well, did he say that Colt will be playing first base? I don't remember that. I think you're right, but I don't remember. But yeah, I mean, the other thing as well on the Tigers note, if Javi Baez is on the opening day roster, I'm going to throw a fit. That man deserves to be in Toledo. Like, he deserves to be anywhere away from my professional baseball team. Like, he's just terrible. Like, and he's not going to get any better. Like, we've waited long enough for Javi Baez to have his best shape of his life season, but it just didn't happen. So, but all right, that's the show. Oh, my camera just froze there for a second. That's funny. That's the show. Longer show, a little bit of a longer show. Look, this is the final show going into a week with football. By next week's show, we will have no football. Football will be done until the month of August. Currently, we're in the month of February. We'll have 6 months until football. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Emotionally, spiritually, economically. It's going to be tough. But we can do it. And I do appreciate anybody for stopping by. I know, a lot of people, primarily football is the thing. So it makes sense. I understand. But stick around. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Again, Michigan State hoops. It's a conversation. The NBA, the Pistons playing at a pretty good level. They're currently in the play-in. The Red Wings in the playoffs right now. We got a lot of good stuff going on. I know football is the big moneymaker. I know football is the big, most popular sport in the country. But hey, you got to fill your days with something. Like, that's the thing. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. How are you guys going to fill your football void? I know how I'm going to fill it, but, I'm just a guy. I just talk on a microphone. What are you listening to me for? But with that, that's where we're going to end the show. I do appreciate you guys for stopping by and listening in. If you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and we'll be back next week. Talk the winner of the Super Bowl and probably the NBA trade deadline, because I'm sure something stupid is going to happen. Oh, well, it's already happened. With that being said, have a good night, everybody, and I will talk to you all next Tuesday. See you later. Goodbye.